We continue on with our NHL season preview series with our teams in the Metro. Today we look at the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins went through significant change in the offseason, both in the front office and on the ice. Can they get back to the playoffs? Are they a cup contender? We'll discuss our expectations coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're previewing the upcoming season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins were one of the teams that were the most interesting to watch over the course of the offseason, as we saw significant change, one of the biggest trades we've seen in a while as well, and a very different looking team going forth for the upcoming 23-24 season. Now, in case you're new to this series, essentially what we do is we're going to recap last year, look at how the team did as some results, some stats, team scoring leaders, look at playoff history, cap space, how the team has changed on the roster over the offseason, what the upcoming lineup looks like, and what questions are facing the team and what we expect from them. So let's start with the recap of 22-23 for the Penguins. They finished with 91 points, a record of 40-31-11, and that did not get them into the playoffs. They missed the first time in a long time. They were a playoff team every year in the Crosby era, except for Crosby's rookie seasons. That's the first time they've missed since 2006. That's a long stretch of excellence and good results and lots of playoffs and multiple Stanley Cups along the way. They scored 261 goals, which was 16th best. They scored 263 against, or allowed to do 263, 19th best. So that's both mediocre results. The power play was respectable, but not super high up in the league rankings, 21.7 for 14th best. And the PK was 79.1 for 16th best. So most of those results are kind of what we call the mushy middle and kind of like, a playoff bubble team. Unfortunately, they lost some winnable games down the stretch, kind of held their own fate and didn't get it done, including a loss against the Chicago Blackhawks, which some people thought might have pushed the Blackhawks out of getting the first overall pick, but in fact, they ended up winning the lottery, so if anything, it was helpful. But this Penguins team did not get the results they were looking for last year, finished poorly, and they're coming back with a whole different outlook this year. The scoring leaders last year included Crosby leading the way at 93 points. Malkin had 83. Gensel had 73. Raquel had 60. And Zucker had 48. The cap space wise right now, they have, according to Cap Friendly, they're in the hole here, so they're over the cap by $79,342, and that's with a 22-player roster. Now, of course, that can be easily changed. They'd have to go down to 21 players, demote somebody to the minors or through waivers, and become compliant. It's not that difficult to do, but it does leave them with the maximum of 21 players on the roster, which is not really ideal, but it is manageable. Obviously, there's going to be lots of other things happening throughout training camp here that could result in players, coming or going, and could change things a little bit. But that's where things stand here today. Of course, the other big thing we saw in the offseason is we saw the dismissal of GM Ron Hextall and President Brian Burke. That was right at the end of the regular season. And then, of course, we know Kyle Dubas came in as president, later hired himself as general manager. So Dubas is essentially running the front office. He also brought in Jason Spezza as an assistant. So, Dubas made some big moves this offseason, trying to leave his mark here on the Penguins early on after not coming to terms and parting ways with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, let's take a look at how this roster has changed through the course of the offseason, starting with the subtractions. Players no longer with the team include Jason Zucker, Jeff Petrie, Brian Dumoulin, Danton Heinen, Josh Archibald, Mikhail Granlund was traded, Casey DeSmith was moved as well. So that's a lot of pieces that were regulars in the lineup last year. New to the team this year include Riley Smith, who came over from Vegas with a Stanley Cup ring, Lars Eller, who came over after a long time in Washington and a little bit in Colorado. Noel Cherry followed Kyle Dubas. Obviously, Dubas brought him to Toronto last year and then signed him again in Pittsburgh. Rem Pitlick come over in the Erik Karlsson trade. Matt Nieto was signed. Of course, Erik Karlsson was a big acquisition, and Ryan Graves is a pretty good signing as well in the back end. And goalie Alex Nedeljkovic on a redemption tour, trying to get his career back on track. But clearly, when it comes to additions and subtractions, Erik Karlsson, by far the biggest out of any of those names. coming into Pittsburgh after making it clear to the Sharks that he wanted out and he wanted to have a chance to win, and they were able to get this deal done. Dufour and the Penguins were rumored to be in on this all summer, and then of course late in the offseason, well into it, they finally get it done. It was a significant deal, of course, and of course part of that was Petrie, leaving, DeSmith leaving, Pitlick coming in, Granlund, of course, going to San Jose as well. Like, they were able to move a lot of unfavorable contracts and bring in a superstar player at the same time. Now, also in camp on PTOs who could become part of the roster include Austin Wagner and Colin White in the forward group, and Mark Pysyk and Libor Hajek on the back end. Mark Pysyk did suffer a significant injury, though. We're not sure how that's going to affect things, but my guess is he probably won't be signed. But he is going to be out for a long term, and that's after missing the entire season last year due to an Achilles injury, so that's not good for him at all. As far as prospects that we think would have a chance to play this year, I'm not sure we're really going to see any prospects. I mean, we're some younger players that don't have a ton of experience that could get some action on this roster, including you're hoping to see full-time campaigns from guys like Pierre-Olivier Joseph. Hopefully, Ty Smith gets more action as well. But other than that, Samuel Poulin, Owen Pickering likely still plays in junior. Poulin, I would imagine he'll get some call-up action and be an extra forward that they'll consider for when they have a need. But at the end of the day, this team doesn't have much in the way of prospects that are going to impact the roster right away. As far as some bounce back or breakthrough candidates for bounce back, I'm looking at Tristan Jarry. Jarry is a player you need to be healthy, and you need to have him be more consistent. For a breakthrough, I'm going with Alex Nylander. I think Nylander might be able to secure himself more of a full-time gig this year and actually come close to putting together a full-time NHL season and put together some decent numbers. So I think it might be finally time for Nylander to break through with the Penguins. Now let's take a look at this projected lineup as we get closer to the beginning of the season. Right now, according to dailyfaceoff.com, the projected lineup is as follows. Your first line projects to be Crosby with Raquel and Riley Smith. The second line they have is Malkin with Rust and Nylander. Of course, Jake Guentzel is going to be on injured reserve for the first 5-6 games, missed a few weeks of the season. That's why he's not mentioned here. Lars Eller, Jeff Carter, and O'Connor as your third line. And your fourth line right now projects to be Achari, Nieto, and Pitlick. Hard to say if any of those other PTO guys get a deal or not. It's debatable, to be honest, considering they don't have a lot of space for them. On the back end, you've got Letang's going to play with Graves, and Pettersson and Karlsson are going to be together. Your third pair will be Pierre-Olivier Joseph, probably Chad Rubeetle, but battle as well. And there are some other defensemen in the mix during training camp here too. But right now they have Rubeetle, given that he's more of a veteran and has more of a steady contract. Of course, Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic make up your goaltending duo. Now, the questions facing this team. The first one for me is, can they get consistent goaltending? That's going to be a huge question. This team can score goals, I have no doubt. How well it defends will also be a big factor here. I think it'll defend better than it did last year, based on the additions and moves that they've made between the forward group as well as the back end. But the goaltending is going to be key. Can Tristan Jarry stay healthy, and can he give you some better, more consistent stats than he did last year? And secondly, can Nedeljkovic, on what I'm calling a bit of a redemption tour here, get back to giving Jarry enough of a break that he can play enough meaningful games and get enough W's for this team to make it worth their while to keep him around? Obviously, moving on from Casey DeSmith was a little bit of changing things up and a little bit of cap management as well. Nedeljkovic comes in a little bit cheaper right now. That certainly played a role in it, but at the end of the day, we need consistency from both. And I have concerns over their goaltending. It's the one area of the team that to me sticks out as the main area of potential weakness here. And they need that in a worse way if they're going to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, let alone be a playoff team. Now, can Erik Karlsson and Chris Letang coexist in the back end and both be productive in the process? And I think the answer is yes, and I hope yes, because, I think they can definitely coexist. I don't think there's going to be any issues with ice time. I think they can both play a lot of minutes. They might even get out there for some shifts together. It's expected that they're probably both going to be on power play 1, at least to start the year. Over time, they may split that up. We'll see. But I know with Karlsson and Brent Burns in San Jose, it kind of allowed them to not be as productive. Because, it's hard to have everybody get all those offensive zone starts, the power play time, all the things that lead to more offensive chances. And they can both play a big role in creating those chances no matter where they're, what ice time they're getting. But, it's still going to be a challenge. I have no doubt that from a, attitude perspective, it sounds like they're willing to make it work and they're willing to work together. And I don't think there's going to be there's no issues that way. It's just a matter of, can they both be productive? Can you still see Karlsson putting up anywhere near 100 points? It's hard to imagine, to be honest. But, even if Karlsson can be his numbers come down and he's a 70-point defenseman and Letang can be, 50, 60, that's still really, really good. Now, as I mentioned, another big question is who fills in for Guentzel to start the year? And I think the answer is Alex Nylander. He seems to be the guy playing his way into that spot. I know the lineup from Daily Faceoff showed Nylander with Malkin and Smith with Crosby. Wouldn't be shocked if that was flip-flopped. Either way, Nylander stands to be the player I think that benefits the most from the Guentzel injury. If he plays well and can be productive, then they'll have some tough decisions to make when he comes back. Maybe at that point, maybe Riley Smith drops down to the third line and you see Guentzel and Nylander on that left side in the top six. There's options there. Riley Smith is, I think, still capable of playing top six, but I don't think he has to be. I think he can be a third line player. I would put him there more than the other two, just given the style of play. I think he would fit better with Eller and Carter. That would be a pretty, experienced third line. So at the end of the day, I think Nylander is the answer to that question. And can they get back to playoffs? Can they be a cup contender? I think they can get back to playoffs. It's not going to be easy. This team, like I said, I expect them to be better than last year. I think they've added some more offensive weapons, especially in the case of Erik Karlsson. I think they're pretty balanced that way up front. Good, ton of offense from the back end. I think I like the addition of Ryan Graves. Pettersson's pretty solid. I really think this team will be better both offensively and defensively. The question for me is between the pipes. They committed a big contract to re-sign Tristan Jarry when a lot of people thought he might be gone, and that's a big gamble in my opinion. So obviously that's going to be the big X factor here. Can they compete with the Devils and the Hurricanes, who are expected to be the top two teams in the division? There's the Rangers are going to have something to say about us. A lot of people are kind of predicting, and I would say that it looks to be, at least based on what you expect. I mean, a lot of people making predictions are wrong all the time. Things happen that you don't see coming. Injuries happen that you can't predict and whatnot. But you've got the Hurricanes and the Devils, which a lot of people think are 1-2. And the Rangers, Penguins, to me, are kind of like your 3-4. You got the Capitals that are in there. They should be better too, but how much? You expect teams like the Jackets and the Flyers to probably be at the bottom. The Islanders are, a steady middle-ranked team. I don't know. It's tough to say. Can they get to playoffs? I think they can. It's far from a guarantee, though. I think, with the additions and changes they've made, I do expect them to be better. But they're going to be in a really tough division. The Atlantic Division, who they're also obviously competing with for when it comes to wild card spots and stuff, also really tough. You see, the teams over there. You get Toronto, Tampa, Boston, Florida. Then you get the upcoming teams: Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa. It's really hard to say. You could have 5 from one, 3 from the other when it comes to playoffs. It could go 4-4. It's not clear because there's a lot of parity. So I do think there's a path for them to get to the playoffs. Can they be a cup contender? I'm not sure the answer to that is yes, because I don't have the confidence in the goaltending. Tristan Jarry is going to have to prove me wrong that he can be a Stanley Cup quality goaltender for that to happen. And that's, to me, where things are at. I do think they're a team who can get in the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if they won a round. But I don't know that they can go super deep in the playoffs, given the goaltending situation that they have. Now, if Jarry and Nedeljkovic are better than I think they're going to be, then maybe they can. I just don't have that level of confidence right now to say that. We've seen teams like the Devils last year or the Hurricanes, even the Rangers a couple of years ago too, show that they have that X factor between the pipes. that can give you the steady enough or goaltending to go along with the other parts of the defense and the scoring to have a chance. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. To me, they're going to be an exciting team to watch with Erik Karlsson, Chris Letang on the back end. They made some good additions up front. I think they're going to be fun and interesting. Playoffs are certainly a possibility. I don't think that they've gone far enough to be able to say that they're a cup contender. But time will tell, and like I said, there's always a few teams that surprise us every year. Maybe the Penguins will be one of them and surprise me this year. Let me know what your thoughts are on this team down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around for the rest of the season previews, all the latest news and rumors from around all the other teams in the NHL. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.